turn it over to you.
All right. Well, welcome everybody to the September Midday Café. It is great to see your faces, and we're glad to be back with you as we're headed into this fall season. We are always striving to bring you the best of the best in content, and so have a certification coming up, and it's just in a couple of weeks, October 21st through the 24th in Marshall, Michigan. And so we'd love for you to check that out. It's with Claire and Scott Lowridge in their church there at Crossroads. And so they're going to be facilitating, it's a 4-day experience called Enneagram Motions of the Soul. And it's incredible. I've been 4 or 5 times and would return as many as I can, just because the wisdom there for the harmony is just incredible. So I'm going to post a link there. You can check it out at scottandclairelowridge.org. And then also, we are so excited. Next year, the IEA Global is not hosting a global conference on centrally, but they are doing regional conferences. And so the IEA Great Lakes is partnering with the Minnesota chapter to present a conference in the Chicagoland area called Enneagram as a Verb. And so all we want you to do now is block the dates, July 24th, 25th of 2020. Our keynote and endnote speakers are Jerry Wagner, Chris Hewarts. We've got some other great surprises coming and some incredible workshops that are going to be set up. But we would just love to connect with you face-to-face in that space in Chicago, the 24th and 25th of July in 2020. So I'll put that date in as well, save that, and we'd love for you to join us. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Claire, and we're gonna get started today with our content.
Thanks, Erica and Teresa. I'm so grateful to say that we are having this regional conference in Chicago. And some of the best in Enneagram teachers are going to be right here in the Great Lakes region. So I hope you do mark your calendar. If you're interested in presenting at this conference, there will be a call for presenters that the IEA will be putting out. I believe in November, they'll put out the call for presenters, and then we'll be able to let you know how many people we can actually include in this wonderful experience right here at Wilson Abbey in Chicago. So JPUSA, the Jesus People USA, our good friend and board member, Orion Trickey, has secured that spot for us. We're so thrilled. The board has been working on this conference already. We're in collaboration with Minnesota. And we are putting together some things that I think will benefit all of us in our continued education with the Enneagram. So come on, let's raise a glass for the regional conference coming to Chicago. It's going to be so good. And then let me just say that next month, Peter O'Hanrahan is going to be with us. And so we're thrilled about that. November, the Enneagram Prism Project. So just so you know, we have some great things, to just percolating right here in the Great Lakes region. And with that, I really felt as though we have some vibrancy that we haven't had in years in this region. And it's because of many of the people sitting here on this call and the good work that they're doing in their own souls, the inner work that they've opened up to, and then bringing their gifts and graces to the region in very unique ways. And so I want to introduce you to a couple of people and how they're bringing this good work to the world, what's in their own heart and soul as they bring their work, and how you can connect with them. And right off the bat, I'm going to welcome our friend Morley. And so, Morley, will you introduce yourself to people who don't know you and let us know how you are bringing the goodness of the work of the Enneagram to this region?
Hi, Claire, and thank you for the invitation to be here. I started on the Enneagram journey about 10 years ago, so I guess relatively new compared to some of the others. And I attended the narrative tradition. My first teacher was Dr. David Daniels, and he would always say, start with a centering breath. So if I could ask the group to just take a centering breath as you kind of get settled in. And so from there, I completed the certification in the narrative tradition about 2 years ago. It was a slow process. I was working in professional development at a university here in Wisconsin. It's a beautiful day in Wisconsin right now, actually, nice and sunny. And I retired from the university about 2 years ago. And since then, I've been, I think it's more personal development still with the Enneagram. I did attend Jerry Wagner's 5-day class last month, I guess in June. And that was very good for me to go and attend that. I like Jerry Wagner's perspective, Dr. Wagner's perspective. And so, yeah, that was a great, kind of getting back into it a little bit more. And I've been working with several clients, but not really in a kind of a pay me kind of a mode. It's more helping them understand themselves better. As I said, I've retired and I'm not really driven to go and, make it a source of income, but I have been using the methodology to help professionals who are in that stage in life in their 40s, who are trying to figure out where to go next for the next 20 years. So that's my quick background.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And are you offering that gift online or just in person, Morley? What's happening?
Okay. My preferred method is personal, face-to-face. This is the first time I'm talking about it online as such. And so, yeah, it's more that I think I get the sense, with the 3 centers, with the mind, heart, and the body, I get a better resonance with who I'm talking with if I am talking with them face to face.
Okay. And that's really good to know. So you are where? You're in Wisconsin?
Yes. I mean, I'm close to Milwaukee.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not seeking clients or anything. It's just whatever happens.
Mm-hmm. You're receiving what's being given.
Yes. Exactly.
And so let's just take a centering breath right there, right? And say,
yes. It's all, I think what I've learned most is receptivity and being present.
Mm-hmm. And those of us who have been in your presence, Morley, we know that's true.
Thank you. Thank you, Claire.
Yeah. Thank you. And I want to introduce Teresa McCloy. So Teresa, tell us what is happening in your neck of the woods and what you're doing with the Enneagram and how you're bringing it to the world.
Well, for those of you that don't know me, I work as a coach. That's what I do. I usually work mostly with people in the business space or in the leadership space as a business coach and leadership. Erica and I actually work together. I have a business called The Real Life Process. Work a lot around time management and productivity when I'm working with a client in that way, focusing on what really matters most. And out of that, it's starting with our real self. So that's where the Enneagram comes into play for me. But over the last few years, since being with Claire in several of her trainings and being in the coaching community overall, I work with an organization called Professional Christian Coaching. That's a training organization where I'm in their core leadership team as well. I kept having people asking me, how do you use the tool of the Enneagram in coaching? And so this fall, I actually kicked off an online paid community. It's a membership site for coaches, spiritual directors, consultants, pastors, people that are wanting to use the tool of the Enneagram in the work that they do. So whether that's paid work or ministry work, it doesn't matter, but how do I use this tool in that work? And we've developed, Eric and I, lots of resources, lots of ways, and people would say, can I use what you have? And so rather than having people have to reinvent the wheel, we've created this collaborative community that we call Enneagram Circles, where we do monthly training. Scott and Claire will actually be coming in next month to do some training for us. we really use the harmony model that Claire teaches, and really that is our main model of the Enneagram that we use within the Enneagram circles. And so we're very upfront about that's the model that we use. And if you're desiring certification, we would recommend Claire's model. We use Jerry's assessment. So we're very Great Lakes region supportive. But we've launched with about, Erica, you'd have to tell me for sure, 17, 18 people in the community. And we love the work that we're doing. It's my favorite time of the week to hop on calls with these Enneagram lovers, some of them practitioners, been through Claire's certification or Jerry's certification or other things. But we're just having a blast hanging out in Enneagram circles. So it's kind of a train the trainer type program. So
nice.
I'm loving it. It's great to see people using the Enneagram and the work they do.
Yeah. And so Erica's putting those things down, but you mentioned that you're using Jerry's test, but you also came up with something that he approved. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely, I did. Yes. One of the things I love about the Enneagram community is the generosity of spirit that we have with one another, of using each other's work, giving credit where credit is due, and supporting each other in that. And I have been using Jerry's assessment ever since I've been using the Enneagram, but I wanted to create kind of a harmony model of how that assessment could be, or personality profile is actually what he calls it, how that could be used in a harmony model. And so over the summer, I showed Jerry some of the results that I had been giving to my clients as I was using his work, and he approved for me to use those in that way. So now I have personality profiles. It's part of Enneagram Circle that are actually used in the harmony model when people receive their results back. So this is his profile, and then I personalize the results to the harmony model with his blessing.
With his blessing. That's
Yes.
right. And you don't get that from a 5 easily. So, he wanted to be sure that it was competent and well done. And so congratulations to you, Teresa. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. We love it.
Yeah. And how about Rosemary? Rosemary, tell us what's happening. You have a new book out this year, and you're from Michigan, up by the Great Lake of Michigan, right? So tell us about, you're going to want to unmute yourself. Rosemary, there you go. Hi.
Thank you, for sharing that. I actually live in Chicago. We live in the suburbs of Chicago and have raised our family here for 34 years. And I don't know, maybe 16 years ago, we became cottage owners up in the pure, beautiful Michigan. We love it so much. So we're in the Traverse City area, Elk Rapids, a little tiny town, and my mom was a farm girl, so it suits me perfectly, and we love it. We have many memories of running to, the farms in Wisconsin near Madison. And anyway, my book has been a labor of love because I took Jerry Wagner's training, when I had a deeper call to change careers from corporate recruiting and placement work to going back and getting a Master of Arts in Pastoral Studies at Loyola. And the thing that had neon around it for me in the master's program was the Enneagram. I came home and told my husband, I have to work with this. I don't know how. I'm going to listen to this small voice inside of me that you're going to work with it. I remember being on campus on a windy day and saying, how can I do this sacred work? I'm just damaged goods like everyone else. And I heard deep within me, I will put the words, I'm such a crier, don't mind me. I will put the words inside your mouth. Like I heard that somewhere really big in me. And so I came home and I've been doing it ever since. Well, I got my certification in 01, and in 04, I got my master's. So, but even in 02, I did a workshop with Jerry called The Taste of the Enneagram at Old St. Pat's. I was honored to be asked. And then I did them with my, my girlfriend, my women's group, my Holy Cross moms group, and they wanted more. But the pastoral associate there sort of had her own ways of doing things. So I just started going out to other churches, and Oh, I don't know, whoever would have me, like living rooms and, colleges, junior colleges, continuing ed. My dad was a professor. And the thing I want everybody to know, most importantly, is that this stems from a deep place inside of me. And I always share that with people because I say, I had a clinical depression when I was a college freshman and was in a psychiatric hospital. And it was extremely difficult, and I had 3 months of coming back and forth. I mean, it was a dark night. I was in a nursing program, and I didn't want to be a nurse. And lots of kids change their majors in college, right? But they don't fall apart. But I did. And it was really fruitful work I did. And I basically think that the Enneagram, finding it in midlife, after I stayed well, and raised a family, my dad said, you should write a book called How I Got Well and Stayed That Way. I said, I don't think so, Dad. That's really nice. But I'm raising a family and all that. But anyway, your parents die and become really smart. So
yes, it's so true. Yeah.
And then I said, you know what? I was intimidated by all the PhDs, but I thought to myself, you know what? I have something to say here. I truly do. Maybe they didn't have a clinical depression. Maybe they didn't fight for their own identity the way I had to really learn it. And had I had this when I was younger, maybe it would have made a difference. So I wrote this book, and it's funny because my son-in-law to be, I was going to call it The Enneagram Effect, because I got in another book called No Mistakes. I've done a lot of inspirational compilation book writing, and the Hierophant publishing company said to me, your book is really good, this one, but there are so many out there, and we don't know if we can make money on it, but we encourage you to publish it yourself or whatever. So he said, why don't you call it The Enneagram Effect? I was struggling. But my daughter's fiance now, Nick, said, why don't you have a secondary market, not just people in their 40s or up, 40 to 80, but the millennials who really need some help. And he said, why don't you turn it around? Don't say the Enneagram effect on who you're meant to be. Say who you're meant to be, the Enneagram effect. So that's what I took his advice. Because it's about spiritual connection. It's about using this tool to feel well. And if I have a talent at all, it's about bringing some of the psychobabble down to a Grandma Moses, so to speak, way of speaking, and telling people that the arrows and points of integration and disintegration are really about feeling well. It's just about emotional wellness in so many ways. And emotional wellness and spiritual connection go hand in hand. And, because we're safe in the spiritual life, we're safe, we're loved, we're enough. And so to take that and find that in this beautiful paradigm, and it's everywhere in it, right? I mean, it tells us everything. Not in this paradigm, I hope mine does it too. I hope mine, it's a pretty fundamental book. It's the 7 mainstays, but I do start with a short story. And Jerry told me he liked that. I started with a short story of each type, just from my own experience. My daughter, when she was a baby in a crib, who's a type 1, being kind of annoyed at my dad when he came in and said, Claire Bear, what are you doing? And she goes, can't you see I'm reading? She was 2. She wasn't even reading, but she had that little annoyance already as a little developing one. So anyway, I'm working hard at it. I've been working at it since I've been for 17 years now. And I just put a note to God every day, please send in my calendar who I am supposed to learn, who I'm supposed to help, and who's supposed to help me. And I don't make a lot of money, but I make enough to pay the taxes here and at the cottage, and that's about it. And I'm happy to do it, and I'm happy to keep growing, and that's it.
Well, Rosemary, that's really good, connected with your heart stuff. Even your tears speak to us that this is not just a tool. It's something that you've embodied. It's something that you've taken in for your own wellness, as you say, your own emotional wellness, and then offering that to other people. And I just want to take a breath and
Yeah, I know
you
that.
know, and thank you for your vulnerability and sharing your story with us around the work that you're doing with the Enneagram. And so in spiritual language, we would say you're incarnating something. And so thank you very much. Thank you. Bless
Thank you so
you.
much. Bless you. Thank you for having me. I love you
You're
all.
welcome. Oh my goodness. We're looking forward to more. All right. And so now let's welcome Kathleen Loridge. Same last name, but she's my sister from another Mr. And she's doing great work with the Enneagram in the Calhoun County region right here. And tell us about that, Kathleen.
Yeah, so thank you for inviting me today. So I started my work as a coach back in 2004, and at the time I knew nothing about the Enneagram. So it was strictly coach training. And then the Enneagram was introduced to us through Claire and Scott. I'm on staff at the church that they lead. And so it became very clear to me that very quickly that what a great tool this is for coaches, because some of the core competencies that you learn as a coach are active listening, creating awareness, building rapport, so many different things that are just completely aligned. So soon after I became credentialed as a coach, I started looking into certification with the Enneagram. And so that was back in, so it's been 15 years of learning and studying and melding the two together, which I believe are just such a great fit. And I do one-on-one coaching, and one of the things, like Teresa, I use Jerry's test before I meet with, or assessment, before I meet with any person. It just helps me as a coach to understand them and to see where they're at. And it's a great starting point for sure. And then, so do that one-on-one in person. Like morally, my preference is in person, but that doesn't always happen. Many times it's online through a format such as this or Skype. And I'm doing, one of the things that I love doing, I'm working for the state of Michigan as a vocational coach. And the department that I work with is the Michigan Rehabilitative Services. And so that is helping people with disabilities to overcome obstacles to employment. So disabilities can range from, I just got out of prison, to I had an accident and I no longer can do what I used to be able to do. So it is, I do some classes, group classes, but I've been doing more one-on-one, which I love because the Enneagram is so helpful in helping people to understand their strengths and their challenges of their personality. It helps with developing resumes. It helps with helping I train people on how to interview properly. And the Enneagram is a great tool for that because we have it all right there. And I've been doing as of late, I've been doing some staff development at a medical facility. And that's been great too, because as we all know, when we can become aware of ourselves, we can have more compassion for ourselves and transform into our best selves, and also have that same compassion for others, especially when you're working day to day with people that you don't understand or that may be different than you. When you can bring in the understanding and awareness of the Enneagram, it just really helps teams and helps teamwork, and it helps to avoid misunderstandings that come with teamwork, and it helps to resolve conflict in a healthy, productive way. So that's another area. And then my husband and I, Sean, we've been doing a marriage group for several years, and of course the Enneagram is vital to marriages. We found that out with ourselves when we first were introduced to the Enneagram, and then we just find so much joy and fun. We had a lot of fun with our marriage group in talking about the Enneagram and how we're different and how we complement one another, and how it can be a dance with one another rather than a wrestling match, which is common in marriages when you don't understand one another. So those are some of the ways that I'm using the Enneagram. And so it's varied. It's many different ways. And I continue to learn, and any training that I can get. I too have been to Claire's training multiple times and feel like I'm always just a student of the Enneagram, because there's so much to learn. There's so much value in what I do with my work with people that I just never want to stop learning more, so that I can partner with people and support them to become their best selves. And my business is called Purpose-Filled Coaching. And even before I knew the Enneagram, the purpose, helping people understand their purpose, is a real passion of mine. So I just feel like the Enneagram is a perfect fit for my coaching.
Yeah. Well, and you've also studied with Jerry Wagner and with Roxanne Howe Murphy and with Ginger Lapid-Bogda getting certified in all of those ways.
Yeah.
And, I love, you studied with Roxanne deep coaching.
Yes.
And I remember when you were going through that certification, and then with the passing of your 21-year-old beautiful son, Isaac,
mm-hmm.
The deep work that has happened in you, even around the Enneagram. You were on Teresa's podcast the other day, you and Sean, talking about grief with Teresa, who also has lost her young son. And so I trust you with people who are in the depths, that the Enneagram really isn't just this thing for you. It's about how can we help you open to grace in some of the most painful moments of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Claire.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a huge healing tool for grief. And there's so much to say about that. So listen to Teresa's podcast. Sean and I go into that a little bit, but yeah, I feel like everything that I do, whether it's coaching or not coaching, is the Enneagram is vital to understanding myself and others in a way that is transformational.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I remember, so this is important for everyone because you're all working with people in different seasons of life. But I remember I was in a seminar with David Daniels right after my nephew Isaac, Kathleen's son, passed. And I found David told me that he lost his son at 25 years old. And I said, David, can you help me walk with my brother and sister-in-law? Is there anything you've written? Is there anything that, could be helpful? And he did write an article. So if you do look at daviddaniels.com, there's an article about how each type might process grief. I wish you would have written an entire book on it, but it's kind of it's just an open door, I think, for each of us with his brilliant medical background as a psychiatrist, in addition to his own deep experience of losing his son. And so with the Enneagram, this is important work, especially in a time when we see the Enneagram really is kind of hot and cool, and people are loving it, and our young people are really loving it, but they don't really even know how much they're going to need it in life.
Yeah, so true.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Kathleen.
Thank you.
And then our beautiful Erica Vinson, our Great Lakes secretary, she has just made some very particular movements with the Enneagram. And how's that going for you right now, Erica? How are you utilizing the Enneagram, and what's happening in your own soul?
Oh, thanks, Claire. Well, it has been a sweet journey with the Enneagram, and one that has come full circle. I was actually introduced to the Enneagram through a group coaching program. And I myself was in a season of deep healing and really deep weeds after walking through a very painful divorce in the middle of full-time ministry. And so the Enneagram met me in a time when I needed harmony, and I needed wholeness and real knowing of self. And so it was just a beautiful invitation there. And then to be introduced to the helping profession of coaching after being a part of counseling and a group counseling program as well. It was an amazing invitation. And so because of the forward movement I have experienced with coaching, I've decided in the last year and a half to pursue coaching and life coaching. And I work with Professional Christian Coaching Institute that Teresa mentioned as well. And my certification and training will all be through there. But I'm just finding it to be a beautiful tool. I'm so blessed to be working with the real life process. And Teresa mentioned things there, but the clients that I'm able to work with, really finding that those that are walking in major transitions, it doesn't have to be the depth of divorce, but really just looking at, how do I move from the place I'm standing to the place I want to be, and the gap seems wide. And so it's kind of like, we see people putting out now, oh, I'm an Enneagram coach. Well, I'm a coach first that has this great tool of the Enneagram in my tool belt. And it is one of my favorite tools that helps clients really know their real self well. And I was just working with someone last week that has kind of been thrown to the wolves by her boss to present on something that she doesn't really even understand. And he is introducing her to the process model, but I just invited her to consider the harmony and what that whole self wisdom might even bring for her. And so she has become a one-to-one client. And so I love working with one-to-one clients, and it's opening ways for her to communicate differently with her husband and be a different voice on her team as an Enneagram Type 9, and really show up in ways that are healthy for her. And so that conflict resolution that Kathleen talked about is huge. Teresa and I both do Enneagram personality profile packets with individuals, and then also with couples, because we know that that work, as Kathleen mentioned, is so important. And it's something for my heart, especially. I know that communication piece would have made a difference for me in my own marriage. And so my heart for others, just to be able to express, head, heart, and gut. What are you experiencing in that whole self? Claire calls it flow, even in the work that she does. Teresa calls it full circle. And so whatever it is, it's just being able to integrate that fullness of who God has created us to be. And I apologize for the background noise. And then I think we can't make it up. It's a little bobcat driving by. And so another place I think that the coaching is helpful is with teams. And so working in full-time ministry, and then being able to work and serve with ministry teams, and then also in a secular space. I do more of the life coaching. Teresa's a life coach as well, but does more of the business and executive coaching. But we are just amazed at the transformation that happens within teams when we're able to go in and do a workshop or a Zoom call or a training with this model of harmony, and the spaces that it's just opening up for people to live in more full circle ways to get to know their whole selves.
So Erica, I just want to pause and just say that I've watched you in your transition process, and the beauty of your courage, your willingness to say, here is the pain of divorce, and here is how I want to continue to move with the story of my life. Not forgetting where you've been, but embodying that and bringing that to your real life is, it's powerful. It's a very freeing, I think, to be with a person like yourself that, just in your presence, you feel the ability, the brilliance, the beauty. And many times in divorce, people wonder if they are, if they're expendable, if they're garbage, if they're, why is this happening to me? And you have embodied this beautiful courage of you are all that. You have a beautiful heart and a beautiful gut and a beautiful mind. And I just want to say that your life experience bringing that is, it's transformative to be in your presence. And so thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thanks, Claire. And I think it's neat to pay attention. You know, one of the spaces that's opening up more recently is just even my experience with education too. And so the opportunity to coach and work with teachers and school districts that we're having with the real life process is just, you know, one of those moments we pinch ourselves, but it's whatever environment we're able to use that transformative work, it's a deep blessing.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll want you to talk to us about that maybe another time too, because that's a really important part of the work you've done as a teacher, and now recognizing that you can help teachers to accept their students, the one that can't sit down and the one who, you know, so anyway, we're really grateful for your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Dr. Lori Tate, come on down. Tell us what's happening with the work that you're doing, and how is it to be in the space you're in now when your life is totally changed in these years?
Yes, things keep changing. My daughter turned 16 on Friday, so we are in another phase. First, I just want to mention how much I value this community. To sit here and listen to men and women and the work that you guys are doing and in the different areas is just so encouraging to me. And, you know, nobody sits here with some perfect life. We've all depression, divorce, death, you know, I mean, there's all of these issues, and that's life. I had a professor in seminary who said life is God's curriculum. He uses life to teach me. And so each day, what is it you want to teach me, God? So thank you, each person here, for sharing, whether you verbally said it, you know, or, you know, it's powerful. And the comments on the side of resources and ways to encourage one another. So I am working as a spiritual director these days, a retreat director. I also work part-time at a church in their Christian education. And I really believe people come to spiritual direction because they're longing for more. There's something else. There's something deeper. There's something they want to experience. And I know that that was the case for me. I had been in the church all my life. Is this all there is? Isn't there something more? And I wasn't looking for a new faith, a new gimmick, a new, you know, season of do charismatic, do this, do, you know, I mean, I wasn't looking for that. But isn't there something deeper? And, you know, some of that comes from your different faith traditions. But for so often it was like, I want to be loving, I want to be kind, I want to be patient, I want to be these things, and yet I failed. So, okay, tomorrow I'm going to start, and I'm just going to try harder. I'm going to love Jesus more. I'm going to make sure I read my Bible and do this every day. And it was a cycle of desire and failure and defeat. And through spiritual direction, I learned how much I was loved. I wasn't getting a grade card every day. And then as I learned the Enneagram, and that opened up for me, I began to see, this is how, I'm not, you know, moving away from my Christian faith. The Enneagram has opened it up for me, has opened it up for me to be able to see, this is why I respond this way. When I'm fearful, when I'm this, when I'm, you know, in my 6 that's not healthy, I act out in these patterns. And so the Enneagram has been able to open that up and allows me to see, I think it's Richard Rohr who says, my unique sin. These are the patterns I've developed. But then it doesn't just show me how they've developed, it gives me a pathway of, oh, I have access to this. I don't have to stay in this pattern. I have new ways of being and new ways of growing to become this true self that God has created me to be. And so in spiritual direction, I find it incredibly helpful. And as I listen to each of you guys, I'm like, I need to make it standard practice. You need to take the assessment before we meet. You just do, because it gives me some footholds. It begins to build common language that often we don't have. And so I need to clue into what I'm hearing you guys saying, and it just needs to be standard. It's $10. It's not hard. Take this assessment and let's work from that. But I have found it so powerful for my directees, for the two who wants to love and care for others. They're giving. And then they have somebody who very harshly, pushes against them, saying, you don't have what it takes. You don't have the abilities and the credentials. And so this 2 accesses the 8 for strength and says, no, you can't talk to me that way, in a kind way, in a loving way. She stands up for herself and says, no, I'm not going to accept that. And she accesses her 5 and her wisdom. And it's just becomes very, very transformative and powerful for my directees. It's been very exciting. So I can't hear you, Claire. Oops.
I thank you for what you said. I think and what I'd like to say along with that is many spiritual directors feel as though an inventory would not be the way they'd want to introduce someone to the Enneagram, but they'd like them to discover it through story. And so I love that we can be in community with one another with different ways of being in our own particular helping profession and discover what is most helpful for us. One of the reasons we've chosen our keynote speakers to be Jerry Wagner and Chris Hewerts next summer is because you've got Christopher, who's very strong narrative tradition, and Jerry, who of course uses the narrative tradition as well, but has a great psychological framework. So it all belongs. And listening to the invitation for what is most true for you at any time to bring your best gifts is really, really helpful. And so I thank you for that. Are you doing spiritual direction online or just in person? What's happening?
No, I actually have a couple of offices that I meet with people face to face, but I also do direction online. I have clients in Virginia, Las Vegas, Northern Michigan, which I love. And it works well. I was amazed and humbled at how well the connection there is.
And I'd like to just back up for just a minute, and because we have one more person that's going to speak, but Ruthie is saying in so many ways, I feel a kindness with you folks, and I also feel like an outsider. I'm not a Christian, though I am spiritual, born Jewish, and trying to be all-inclusive spiritually. And my work tries to be all-inclusive. Thanks for saying that, Ruthie, so much. And especially, my knowing Lori's work, and we could probably actually do a whole Zoom on this. I think we should talk about interfaith work or no faith work in terms of, because I know that even in spiritual direction, Lori meets with people who are of no religious tradition at all. And so while you're naming your own truth here,
Yes.
That's not how you practice in your spiritual direction practice. You are welcoming of anyone from any faith tradition and no faith tradition. So, it's a little bit vulnerable to even name it. Sometimes in some settings, we might say, this is, we're not even going to discuss religion. But the beauty of what just happened with, you stating your truth and Ruthie getting to state hers, all I want to say is welcome and thank you. And let's do better. Let's wonder how we can also, although, Morley didn't tell us anything about his story, but I would like to actually have a whole Zoom experience about how the Enneagram is actually a uniting force. And while each of us use different models and different ways of being engaged, it is a neutral language of understanding, and can be understood as Ginger Bogda, who is a secular Jew. She's not a practicing Jew. She did her work on the Enneagram this year at the conference around Rumi, and it was beautiful. So I encourage you, if you are a professional member, you can get free access to that recording, and if you're not, you can purchase it. And so thank you both for saying those things. And then I'm just gonna last but not least, the most interesting man in the world, Scott Loridge, who keeps me thirsty. Anyway, Scott, what are you doing with the Enneagram right now?
Well, probably good if anybody doesn't know that they would know that I'm your husband after you said that I'm thirsty. That could be
That's
awkward.
good. Keeps people on their toes.
Anyway, I just to mention, to kind of connect with what Ruthie just said, recently, Claire and I were in a conversation with an old friend of ours, and this was really part of the conversation. And the Enneagram was really kind of a central component in being able to have a good, healthy conversation around some just difficult life journey stuff that she has faced over the years. So yeah, I appreciate that. For me, Claire and I think we started the whole Enneagram journey about 17 years ago. Claire can certainly correct and edit. Isn't that like that's a spouse's role, is to edit, especially a husband that needs editing. Anyway, about 17 years ago. So, of course, we're both pastors. We co-lead together. We kind of lead in a unique way, have different strengths. So the congregation that we pastor in, the Enneagram is used systemically, but right now, where some of the things that are going on is Claire and I have a podcast, Enneagram and Christianity, which deals with some different aspects of the Enneagram. One of the things I love about the podcast is that it has a lot of narrative component to it, because some panel work is done in the podcast, harmony triad panels, things such as that, some Christian history to try to help some of those that come from places in Christian faith that maybe have a hard time connecting the Enneagram with Christianity, so try to help that. There's some psychology that goes on with that. So that's one thing that we have, that podcast, and there's a bunch of resources around that. And then we've been doing a Facebook Live. In the Facebook Live, we have been doing with our co-authors of the book that we've written together, Claire and I, and Doug and Adele Calhoun, Spiritual Rhythms for the Enneagram. And in that Facebook Live, there's a kind of a catalog of most of the conversations are 10 minutes long or so. We try to keep them rather brief, but it's different parts of the book that we expound on. There's some talks on there just about the styles or types, and then some talks on harmony triads. We've done some work around empathy, which is a chapter in the book, and then the back of our book has spiritual practices and how they can be incorporated into harmony work with the Enneagram. And we're actually working right now. We're in the middle of working on what we call stop practice. So you can check that out, and we're hoping that's a great resource for folks. We're getting a good response out of that. And then it's already been mentioned, I think, by Erica, the Enneagram MOS training, the certification, and accredited training that we do here in Marshall that we've got coming up in October. This is the first year we've done 3 trainings in a year. So we're just trying to check that out. Normally we do 2. So Claire leads that training. She does the teaching, and it's my responsibility to tell you while you're here where all the hot spots are in Marshall. That's my role. I am and that's, if you know Marshall, that's kind of funny. So Marshall's a community of 6,800 people, but it's a lovely community. But in that training, obviously, there's some, it's based on Trinitarian Christianity. There's some Ignatian spirituality around discernment practices, consolation and desolation, and harmony triads is kind of at the core of that training. Just a wonderful training. And again, something we've had a great response to, and we love doing that training. We love spending a few days with folks. There's a lot of interaction in that training, and each group is really unique. So look forward to every group that we do. So that's kind of what is going on around the Enneagram for me in a macro sense in this quarter, I would say.
Yeah, and so you didn't really share your heart on it, but I think what you love about the Enneagram is that it's kicked my butt and gotten me just on a good path.
Well, I didn't think that would be good for me to say here.
That's good television right there. I don't know.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to say, or I probably do say privately, but
that's right.
Do that here.
That's right. Yeah, and Kim, you see it in the chat. Kim's given an upcoming training. I know Lori has an upcoming training this Saturday. Do you want to put that up, Lori, in the chat? So in case people want to sign up for that. Kathleen, I think you're teaching the Enneagram at the local community college this fall. If you could put down the info for that. I want to say that the purpose of this, inviting some of these folks to talk, really has to do with, we have a vibrant Enneagram community here in the Great Lakes, and it has not always been so. In fact, I do love what Jerry said to me. He said, Claire, you've resuscitated the Enneagram here. And I said, well, let me say this. I get by with a lot of help from all my friends. So the reality is it's a community. Our board is a working board. We are not a board in name only. We are a working board that we really are doing our own inner work, and then together attempting to bring good work in all the places. So I kind of want to say, even with that, Kathleen, while she may have a perspective on coaching, when she's working with Michigan Rehabilitative Services, she's not working as a Christian coach. She's working as a coach who is a Christian. So it's not about her teaching spirituality in that setting. In the work that others of you do, I would imagine in the university setting, morally, that you have a wide audience of the people that you've worked with and who come from different perspectives.
That's right. Yeah, I tend to stay more along the lines of professional development, not getting into spirituality. I treat spirituality as a personal area in their lives. And if they choose to talk with me about it, I'm okay with that, but I'm not going to initiate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's something that you come right into the conversation with. It's not yours to initiate. It is theirs to initiate.
It's their personal topic. If they want to talk about it, I welcome it because I know it's important. I come from a Hindu background myself, and in Hinduism, it's more of a, I think of religion as a buffet. Everyone can do what they're guided to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all share in the search for grace and kindness and love in this world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, early, I don't know, maybe 2003, I read maybe a little later, I don't know, but The Power of Full Engagement, which was a book written by some coaches who worked with Olympic athletes and corporate executives who were really at the peak of their performance, their relational lives, their professional lives, their physical lives. And they talk about the necessity for a healthy spirituality, a healthy physicality, a healthy psychology, and that when all of those are alive, you say a seeking of grace, a seeking of kindness. When all of those are alive in us, we will live wholly.
Yes.
WHOLLY. And in some circles, we would say holy.
Yes.
In my tradition, HOLY. Yeah.
And that's a universal word too. Holy is a universal word. And I know the book you're talking about. I have talked about it. It's by Tony Schwartz.
Yes.
And I have talked about the four sides of us. And when I teach, I do emphasize the need to develop all four sides to be fully engaged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think this would be a really vibrant conversation.
Yes.
And maybe we could even do it in December. We have next month in November, we have Peter O'Hanrahan in let's see, next month's October. Peter O'Hanrahan. In November, we have the Enneagram Prison Project. And can you say in 30 seconds, Lori, who's going to be with us with the Enneagram Prison Project?
I believe Susan Olaski. I don't even know how to say her last name. Will be here. And then there will be some ambassadors, which means these are men and women who have gone through the Enneagram program in prison and have now been released, and they are called ambassadors. So I'm really excited to hear from them.
Yeah. And so we've got some great things coming up. And so I'd just like to take a moment and take a breath. And even in this breathing, if we could breathe deeply, maybe even in and around your heart region, something that drew you to hope or grace or kindness, and just breathe that in and see if you can even make a little more space for it, and wonder if there's an invitation for you. And then with that, maybe we could let go of anything that was ill-fitting or felt imposed or too hard, even for this moment. And know that we can just let go of that, not let that take residency in our body. but maybe even just give yourself a little bit of movement. Whether you notice that it's a tightness in your neck, you might want to just go ahead and begin to move your neck and let go of anything that might be causing you some rigidity, or needing to just move your fingers and unclench your fists. Or just offer yourself some kind of kindness. You know, maybe you just need to give yourself a loving touch. And with that, we open to grace and peace and life and goodness and love. To all of you, have a beautiful day. And thanks for being here. Join us next month with Peter O'Hanrahan. Invite your friends. We'll have another wonderful time together. And this will be posted where, Teresa?
It's actually will be on our YouTube channel. And so I don't know. I always forget. Erica, remind me how it's worded, how you find it on YouTube.
Enneagram Great Lakes. But we'll post the link also on the Facebook page. So if you're not following us there, make sure to follow Enneagram Great Lakes, and you can connect with the YouTube channel and subscribe there.
May I ask a question real quickly?
Yeah.
Are we going to, all these little notes in the chat, if I just click save chat, will that keep all that for me? And where do I find that?
It'll come up as a text file on your desktop, Rosemary.
Great.
So just click save chat, and then you can click back on it and see all those links and all that stuff.
Thank you. And
beautiful. And maybe, Erica, you could press save chat too, and we can put that in the notes on the YouTube channel. Would be really great.
And Claire, if we do want to volunteer our time to you with regard to the GLR objective and any opportunities that might come, what's the best way of doing that? You called me a few years ago and I was like, I'm working really hard. I'm not splintering out, remember, as a 7, but now I have the time to give.
That's wonderful. Just go right ahead and send it right to the Great Lakes address that you get, where you get your newsletter and all of that. We will be so happy to let you volunteer. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you, Claire.
Rosemary. Thank you, Morley.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.